So, let's talk about the hacker. You hear that word and probably a very specific image pops into your head, right? But the true story of how we got here, well, it's way more complex and honestly a lot more interesting than you might think.
I love this quote because it really gets to the heart of the beginning. We're not talking about criminals or spies, at least not yet. This is the origin story of a totally new kind of person, a digital species that has completely reshaped our world from the inside out.
All right, so let's rewind the clock. Our journey starts way back in the university labs and research centers of the 1960s and 70s. This is where the whole idea of a hacker was born. Now, the thing you've got to understand about this first generation is what drove them. It wasn't money. It wasn't malice. It was just pure, unfiltered curiosity. These were academics and brilliant students who saw these massive mainframe computers and early networks as giant puzzles to be solved. Their core belief? That information wants to be free, and that any system could and should be understood. Okay, now we're jumping into the 1980s, and this is where the whole game changes. The hacker is about to move out of the sterile university lab and into the suburban bedroom.
So what was the spark? The personal computer, of course. All of a sudden, you didn't need access to some million-dollar university mainframe. And when you combine that with bulletin board systems, think of them as super early online forums, you suddenly had this connected underground for a whole new generation of self-taught coders.
And this new generation, these digital cowboys, well, they were different. Yeah, curiosity was still part of the mix, but now it was blended with ego, a desire for status, and intense competition. Legendary groups like the Legion of Doom started popping up, and their digital exploits, well, they caught the attention of the media. And that's when Hollywood grabbed the term hacker and turned it into the icon we know today.
As we roll into the 1990s, the internet just explodes. It's not a niche thing for hobbyists anymore. Millions of regular people and businesses are coming online, and suddenly the stakes get incredibly high.
And this is a really crucial shift in thinking. That original explorer's code, the one about pure understanding, for a lot of people, that got replaced by the outlaw's motive. Hacking wasn't just about learning anymore. It was about power. Whether that was financial power, political power, or just plain old digital dominance. And of course, the tools evolved to match these new motives. We see the birth of malware as we know it. Viruses, worms, Trojans, basically digital weapons. At the same time, you see the rise of hacktivism, with groups like Anonymous using these skills for political protest. And, well, you can guess what happened next. Governments had to respond, spinning up the very first cybercrime units to try and fight back.
By the time we hit the 2000s, the landscape completely splits. Hacking isn't just an underground thing anymore. The path of the hacker forks, and it goes in two very different directions. It becomes a legitimate, high-paying profession and a formal tool of nation-states.
And to really get this era, you have to understand this term, the cyber-physical weapon. This is the moment where the digital world stops being just about data and information and reaches out to actually touch and break the physical world. The potential is, frankly, terrifying.
The absolute textbook example here is Stuxnet. This was a computer worm, widely believed to be a state-sponsored weapon that did something unprecedented. It didn't just steal data. It managed to jump across a so-called air gap into a secure network, hunt for very specific industrial equipment, and then physically destroy that equipment, all while lying to the human operators, making them think everything was just fine. The game had absolutely changed.
The fallout from Stuxnet was huge. Cybersecurity blew up into a multi-billion-dollar industry almost overnight. The very skill set that once made you an outlaw now made you a highly paid professional, a penetration tester, or a red teamer. And on the other side of the coin, governments began pouring resources into developing their own advanced persistent threats, or APTs. The digital world was now officially a battlefield.
Which brings us pretty much up to today. The new frontier, the new weapon, and the new shield is, you guessed it, artificial intelligence.
You really have to think of AI as the ultimate double-edged sword. For every amazing defensive tool it gives us, like using machine learning to spot new threats instantly, there's an equally powerful offensive use, like an AI that can write and send millions of convincing phishing emails all on its own.
And the kinds of threats that AI makes possible are just on another level. We're talking about incredibly convincing deepfakes used to trick employees, malware that can literally rewrite its own code to avoid being detected, and even attacks that secretly poison the very data that the defensive AIs are trying to learn from. It's a whole new game of cat and mouse.
But as wild as this AI battlefield is, there is something even bigger, even more disruptive, looming just over the horizon, and that's the dawn of quantum computing.
I mean, just stop and really think about that for a second. Every encrypted email you've ever sent, every bank transaction, every classified government document, just poof, suddenly readable. That is both the incredible promise and the existential threat of a true quantum computer.
And this right here, this is the heart of the problem. All the big, fancy encryption standards that protect basically everything we do online, they're all based on math problems that are just too hard for normal computers to solve. But for a quantum computer, these problems are trivial. A quantum computer won't just crack our encryption, it will shatter it into a million pieces.
And because of that, a silent, incredibly high-stakes global race has begun. It's a sprint between the teams building this ultimate code-breaking weapon and the teams desperately trying to build a shield before it's too late.
So this is the coming conflict, the next great battle. On one side, you have mathematicians and cryptographers racing to invent a whole new kind of math, post-quantum cryptography, that can stand up to a quantum attack. And on the other side, the looming specter of the first quantum hacker, whether it's a person or a nation-state, that will have the power to rewrite the rules of the digital world.
So looking ahead, the future of our digital security is really going to depend on these three big things. Getting those new quantum-safe algorithms built and deployed everywhere, creating autonomous AI defense systems that can react at machine speed, and, this is a tricky one, trying to create some kind of global agreement on the ethics of how we use these incredibly powerful new tools. It's an absolutely incredible evolution when you step back and look at it. From curious students playing with telephone networks, to digital cowboys, to state-sponsored professionals, and now to quantum intruders. The hacker's journey has always mirrored our own technological progress, but now that journey is accelerating like never before.
There's no doubt the next chapter of this story will be written in the strange language of quantum mechanics and AI. But that leaves us with one final profound question. When these digital wars are fought by autonomous AI systems at speeds no human can comprehend, who or what is really in control?